Welcome back to another episode of Guitar Talk with Todd. Here is the audio edition of a portion of my interview with the great George Thorogood. This was originally published in print and online in 2019, and many of you have asked about hearing some of the audio, so here it is. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and enjoy my interview with the great George Thorogood. So, George, what are your early memories of music, and particularly what got you into rock and roll originally?
I had two older brothers, teenage brothers, and they played rock and roll music, all the time, either on the radio or on a record player. So I really literally grew up. I didn't know when I was a little kid that Elvis Presley was a new phenomenon called rock and roll. I thought it had been around forever because I didn't know. I was too young.
Right.
I know I liked it, but I was saying, what's the big deal? And this guy Elvis Presley was just blowing everybody's mind. All this incredible new music was coming on the radio, Fats Domino and the Everly Brothers and people like that. And I just took it in stride because I just thought, well, it was always around, just like Sunshine was, or baseball, or winter and summer. It was a natural thing. But when the Beatles hit, that's like everybody else in the world. It's like Elvis Presley shook the world, the Beatles shook the universe.
Right, yeah.
So that was absolutely impossible to deny. I mean, the second you turned on the TV and you saw this guy with his mop haircut with a guitar shaped like a violin, he was playing it left-handed. He said the three words that changed the world, Todd. Those three words were, close your eyes, boom. Boom. And the world's never been the same.
Right.
I mean, when the whole world was watching. I've never asked them about this. I wish I had spoke this, but I know for a fact, even though I've never gone face to face, I know exactly where Chrissy Hines was in February 9th, or Bruce Springsteen, or Mellencamp, or Tom Petty, or Willie DeVille, any of those guys. They were right where I was. Their nose right up against that TV screen watching the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah.
And we watched it for the next 5 years. The band that really got close to me quickly, not real quickly, but gradually, was the Rolling Stones. I mean, when I saw them, remember, they were coming out at a time when the Beatles were doing A Hard Day's Night, and they were just blowing everybody's mind. The Stones were getting started and hadn't done any originals yet, really, to speak of, actually.
Yeah.
Doing covers of rhythm and blues. And with them, I looked at them, I said, I looked at the Beatles, and they represented freedom. They were young. They were good-looking. They were rich. They were single. They had it all.
Right.
They had all. They were living the 007 dream.
Right.
I mean, and I said, well, they're free of all the. They don't have to go to gym class. They don't have to cut their hair. They don't have to go to some job they hate. At least this is what I thought when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Dylan represented truth. When I listened to him, it sounded like a person was speaking the truth. The Stones represented hope to me. Hope for a guy like me. A slim hope.
Right.
You got to remember, the music that happened from '64 to 1970 is really 75% of the music we still listen to today.
Right.
I
yeah.
mean, it was Zeppelin, and there was Hendrix, and the Who, and the Doors, and the Mothers of Invention. Should I go on and on and on and on and on?
Right.
The Animals, and Eric Clapton, and Jeff Beck, and it was just like, it just kept getting better and better. I said, my hopes for doing this are getting slimmer every day because of the kind of talent that was happening. That's when I turned to the blues, and I was able to do John Lee Hooker on the guitar and play a little slide guitar. I handled a couple other things. I said, if I work hard at this, I can do this. I know I can do this, and I could be the opening band for Alvin Bishop. I could be the opening act for Paul Butterfield. I could be maybe the opening act for, dare I say it, maybe even Jay Giles. And that was my focus, and I knew I could do it. I didn't think I knew I could. I said, there's a market for what I do. Remember, Todd, when I was finally got around to pick up the guitar, the bands that were making a mark, underground acts, were Johnny Winter, Elvin Bishop, Allman Brothers, Bonnie Raitt, Ry Cooder, John Hammond, and they all had one thing in common. They had a blues-based boogie thing with slide guitar on top of it. And I thought there's a chance for one more act to get to the party before they slammed the door on the thing. And that was me. So that was my chance. I said, I can get a thing together and maybe I can open for the Allman Brothers.
Okay, so let's go back and talk about your early years. And I know back in the old days you hooked up with Robert Lockwood. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that initially came about?
I did a gig at a place called Joe's Place where I did a guest set with Sonny Terry and Brandon McGee, and they hired me on the spot to open for them for 2 weeks, which I did, and they paid me. And so I stayed in Boston and hung around the club just so I could watch, because I got free entry to the place. They didn't charge me when I came, so I used to go hang out there so I could see all the top blues acts came in. After they were there, Howlin Wolf came, Charlie Musselwhite came, and then Robert Lockwood came, and there was a guy who really liked me a lot, and he was from Cleveland, and he was a friend of Robert Lockwood, and introduced me, and I would play on Robert Lockwood's breaks. Yeah, he got close to me, and we talked, and he liked what I did. He even talked to taking me to a label, Delmark, and interested in recording me at the time. So he backed me up 100%. It's funny because, it's funny because Robert Lockwood used to say, George, whenever you play the guitar, I close my eyes, I can hear Robert. Now, which Robert do you think he was talking about? It wasn't Robert Plant, okay? And then I played I Can't Be Satisfied for Muddy Waters, and he told me that I could play that song better than he ever did. Okay. And then when I used to play the guitar for John Lee Hooker, one time he just shook his head and he goes, damn, George, you can really play those blues. Now, that's John Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters, and Robert Lockwood talking, who all were in my corner and encouraging me and saying, you're already there. Lockwood said, all you need is a bass player and drummer. But yet all these college education white guys say George Thorogood can't play the blues. Now, Robert Lockwood and Muddy Waters and John Lee Hooker, I guess they're not authorities on this, right, Todd?
Right. Yeah, okay. No, I guess they're not.
Yeah. I said, what are these guys telling me? And then all these guys from Harvard and Berkeley and all these places, and, write all these things and say, blues societies that they have sprung up over the years, and say all this stuff about it. I said, okay, forget it. I won't play blues anymore. I'll play rock. Okay. I'll go out there and beat Jag Giles. It's all the same to me. It's all rock and roll to me, Todd.
Right. I know you mentioned Howlin Wolf, and I've heard you say before that seeing him on Shindig with the Stones had a big impact on you. Do you have any memories of him? Were you around him a lot?
I did. I saw him play. Got to meet him and some of the guys in his band, and then a year and a half later, we got to open for him.
Wow.
Jeff Simon and I, and we had a band, and we opened. We had a good stretch there. We had a run, and we opened for Hound Dog Taylor. We opened for Muddy Waters, John Hammond, and Howlin Wolf. So, Wolf at that time, his health was not great. As a matter of fact, we played with him like in September of '74, and I think he passed away in January of '76 or '75. He was pretty much on his last legs, but he was still the Wolf. He still had the voice, the songs, terrific band. And the little time I spoke to him, he was very pleasant, but it was an effort for him. He'd been in a bad car accident. He'd lost some weight. He was taking nitroglycerin pills because he had had a heart attack, I think. And he had to go on a kidney machine, dialysis, every 3 days or something. So he was, I didn't want to bother the man.
Yeah.
It was like a handshake and a hello, but it was pleasant. It was brief, but it was pleasant.
I'm a big Hank Williams fan. I know you are too. I love your version of his Pictures from Life's Other Side that's on your latest album. And then, of course, you introduced Move It On Over to a whole generation that may have never heard the song before. When did you initially get into Hank Williams, Cash, and traditional country? That seems like it's always been a big part of what you do.
Well, when it comes to country music, there's Hank Williams, and there's Hank Williams, and that's it.
Right.
It's like saying there's blues, there's Robert Johnson. That's it. The thing was, I discovered them, but I was made aware of Robert Johnson and Hank Williams, who were almost exactly at the same time. I had a Hank Williams album, and then I heard Robert Johnson right after that. And I was listening to Hank Williams' record and Robert Johnson's records, and I was going, I couldn't tell which artist was greater, Hank Williams or Robert Johnson. It was so powerful, both of them. And I was just going, this is the greatest music I've ever heard. I remember I'd already been exposed to the Beatles and Zeppelin and Dylan and Hendrix and things like that. I heard Hank Williams and Robert Johnson. That's when I put it together. I said, this is where it all came from. These are the two most important artists that ever came along in contemporary music. And I couldn't tell which one was better. So I said, well, let's do a Hank Williams song and put a slide on like Robert Johnson. Bang, move it on over. Here I am.
Yeah, it's amazing because your version of that has brought Hank and his music to a whole different generation of people that probably never would have heard that original or anything about Hank Williams. That's an amazing thing that happened there.
Well, amazing things happen in the world. I can't help that. That's out of my hands, Todd.
Okay, so going back to guitars for a minute, I know you primarily started on acoustic, and that led to you playing electric. You've always been associated with the Gibson ES-125, although I have seen pictures of you with a Les Paul and some other guitars. Are you a collector? Do you have a pretty extensive guitar collection?
I don't play the 125s anymore. I wore them all out. I can't play them. It was costing us $2,000 to repair one of them a year, and I bought the thing for $200. Now, that's not good business.
Wow.
And they stopped making them in 1970. So it was the only guitar I could play. So Epiphone designed a guitar with Epiphone. I like the 125. But a lot of collection. I have many guitars because that's what I do for a living. I have to have an arsenal of instruments and backup instruments. But I don't have any collection like Mike Campbell does, or people like that. They collect. I collect stories, Todd. That's what I do. I don't have a guitar. I don't have a guitar collection. These are the tools of my trade.
Right.
So if I get one that works, I try to get more of them because they usually, you get a really, really good pair of shoes and you love them and you go back and you go, well, those shoes are out of print now. Oh, I should have bought 5 of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did with the 125s. I grabbed every one I could get, and some of them were not. It's not really a top of the line instrument. It's an inexpensive one. It's not. It's like. Well, you're playing a Les Paul, you're driving a BMW. You're playing a 125, you're driving a Chevy 2 Nova. Okay. And there's only so much you can get out of it.
Okay, so let's get into your guitar playing here a little bit. As far as your tuning goes, I know you primarily play an open G tuning, right?
Not primarily, but when I play slide guitar, I do it in that key. I used to play in D too, but it was too difficult. And like Joni Mitchell told me once, she said, I just got tired of having to change guitars all night because when she recorded a couple of her songs, she used two or three different tunings in one song, one of her big hits. So she was always shifting guitars, and I got tired of doing that. It slows the show down. Boy, if I could be Albert Collins, just go out there with one guitar and blow their minds, man, that's a dream. But you got to be pretty talented to be able to do that. There's only one Jeff Beck. Okay, let's face it.
Yeah.
So and I kept switching guitars all the time as the show would lose momentum, Todd, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So I settled on open G, which is easier for me to play. It's fun. It's very full sounding pick, so that's what I use, and it's dropped down some because my voice is low anyway. So playing in A like Bonnie does or John Hammond does, those people, their voices are higher and stronger than mine. So when you play it, tune it down to G. It's better for my voice because I have a low voice, and it's got a thicker, fatter sound. That's how Hendrix got that sound. He tuned a half a step down. That's because of his voice, because it gave it that real funk, slappy sound that he gets. The strings are looser, so you use heavier strings, and you got a thicker, fatter sound. Now, if you're playing with a trio, that's very important. So that's where I ended up, and that's where I'm going to stay. Rock and roll never sleeps; it just passes out, Todd.